The Bruins are in a goalie mess here, kind of big time, and they've only themselves to blame. Again, it used to be that the Bruins treated goaltender almost on a higher plane than every other team in the league, right? The Bruins have won in the last 10, 15 years, thanks in a huge part to their goaltending situation. You know, to go from Tim Thomas to a Hall of Famer in Tuukka Rask to a shrewd move to bring in Linus Ullmark and then develop what looks like a young star in Jeremy Swayman. Like, nobody in this league has had a better last 15 years of goalie, except for maybe the New York Rangers, going essentially from Lundqvist to Shesterkin. You know, like, the Bruins have been in a really good spot. Credit to Bob Essenza, credit to their scouting department, obviously going back a long time, but they have won primarily because of the goaltender. I don't think you need to do that in today's NHL, but certainly the Bruins have done it. And so now, going into the 2025-26 season, the Bruins goalie situation is as weird and as messed up as it's been in a long time. Let me start by saying this. I expect a bounce-back season from Jeremy Swayman. I do. It was a bad year last year. We'll get into more of that as we talk here. But I do expect Jeremy Swayman to bounce back. I do think Jeremy Swayman's the number one goalie in this league. $8.25 million a year. I don't know if he's quite worth that. But I think he is an above average goalie in this league who deserves to be a starter on a decent team and could be an all-star goalie again. I really believe that. That said, where the Bruins have really messed this up is the goaltending tandem. Okay? One of the reasons they were so great, I mean, probably their biggest reason they set the wins and points record 2 years ago was because they had the best goaltending tandem maybe in NHL history. Now they have something far, far from that, and Don Sweeney's the only one really to blame. He did not handle that Linus Ullmark trade well last year at all. He trades Ullmark in June, knowing he's going to have to extend one of these guys as Ullmark goes into a contract year, and so does Jeremy Swayman. And he just lays his cards out right away. A week before free agency opens, he has zero leverage. Zero. Because he's already traded the other guy. And Jonas Korpisalo was not going to be the Bruins starting goalie going into 24-25. So, of course, Jeremy Swayman was going to hold his feet over the fire. That's Don Sweeney's fault. So when Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are bitching up there about how they can't get a contract done, that is your fault. That's your fault. And the trade to begin with sucked. You got a 25th overall pick to get a project kid who had 2 points in the NCAA this year, in Dean Letourneau. And you brought in, who was statistically maybe the worst goalie in the league last year, in Jonas Korpisalo, at a $4 million cap hit. You saved $1 million on that. Who wins that deal? It's Ottawa. 11 times out of 10, they win that deal. And Ullmark, who battled some injuries this past year, had a very good year again. And Jonas Korpisalo is what you thought he was, a bad goalie. And guess what? You've got 3 more years of him at a $4 million cap hit for a guy that you didn't even trust to play. He played 27 games last year. It's like throwing Jeremy Swayman to the wolves almost as punishment. Of like, yeah, we gotta throw him out there 50, 60 games because we're paying him $8.25 million. It's just a terrible trade strategy. It was a terrible return. It just didn't make any sense. And all that for a Vezina-winning goalie that you traded within your division with a team that you knew was going to be battling for a playoff spot against you. Like, what an awful, awful, awful move. And Ottawa gave up on Korpisalo after 1 season. They had to attach a first-round pick just to get rid of him. And they got a great return. And this is not 1 year for Jonas Korpisalo. This has been a downward trend, man. He's had a sub-900 save percentage in 4 of the last 5 years. Like, that's kind of the difference between league starter and just not good enough. He's had a sub-900 save percentage 4 of the last 5 seasons. Linus Ullmark has never had a sub-900 save percentage for a season. Not one time in his career. Jonas Korpisalo makes a regular habit out of it. And you're still locked down to him for another 3 years, which is all the more confusing that you extended your Providence Bruins goalie, Michael DiPietro, for 2 years this summer. In a vacuum, I like that. You know why? Because Michael DiPietro should be your backup goalie. He had an unbelievable season in Providence this past year. There's no reason DiPietro shouldn't be the second part of the tandem with Jeremy Swayman. He is 26 years old and playing minor league hockey. But we know goalies are weird, man. The guy, like the greatest goaltending hero of my lifetime is Tim Thomas, who was like playing in Finland at age 26, man. Like he had this weird serpentine route to the NHL. Michael DiPietro has the same kind of deal. I'm not saying he's going to turn out to be Tim Thomas, but he's played one NHL game in the regular season with Vancouver. He gave up 7 goals in that game. They threw him to the wolves, and then they gave up on him. They traded him to the Bruins for Jack Studnicka. Remember that name? And he had to go down to the ECHL before making it back to the AHL. This dude was playing for the Maine Mariners a couple years ago. And last year, he stepped out in a big way. He won the Baz Bastian Award, the Vezina Trophy for the AHL last season. 26, 8, and 5. He was third in the league at 2.05 goals against average, and he led the entire AHL with a .927 save percentage. That's not just Vezina stuff. That's almost league MVP kind of numbers for a goalie. And he's just sitting there doing it in Providence. While Jonas Korpisalo has an .890 save percentage in the NHL. It doesn't make any sense. And now, Don Sweeney, you've put yourself in a hell of a bind once again. You've backed yourself into a corner with your goalies. You probably should have dealt Jonas Korpisalo before the beginning of last season. And maybe it wasn't DiPietro at that point. Maybe you just got a league average backup. You know, someone like a Jaro Halak, who's been on this team before, just recently retired. You maybe get someone like that. I think there was a lot of buzz around that before last season because you traded a guy with a $5 million cap hit who was one of the best goalies in the league for arguably the worst goalie in the league at a $4 million cap hit. It just didn't make any sense to keep him. I think a lot of people expected Jonas Korpisalo to be traded before last year, but they're either naive or they're not used to the Don Sweeney experience because he's all in on deals that just make no sense. And now to get rid of him, you're going to have to do what Ottawa did. You're going to have to trade a first-round pick along with it. Nobody wants Korpisalo. Nobody. I don't even think Edmonton would go for him. He's not even as good as Stuart Skinner. You'd have to tack on legit draft capital just to get rid of this guy. While you sit down there in the minors with a guy who is clearly too good for the AHL. Do those numbers automatically translate Michael DiPietro as a starting caliber goalie in the NHL? Of course that's not automatic. Of course it's not. But we're not talking about having a good season in the AHL. We're talking about having a dominant season in the AHL. You got to give the kid a look. That is one of Don Sweeney's biggest problems and one of the Boston Bruins' biggest problems of the last couple of seasons, the last 2 or 3 years, specifically the last 1 or 2 years. You've got to give these kids a look at some point. And we saw it at the tail end of last season, but probably not enough for as bad as that team was for the whole year. Fabian Lysell, Georgi Merkulov, Matt Poitras, Fraser Minton. These guys have to play in the NHL at this point. You've got to see what they have. And the goaltending situation is no different. You've got to see what Michael DiPietro can give you. You've got to see what he can be at the NHL level. If it's going to take a Jonas Korpisalo injury to get him up there, that's a big issue, man. Because what does Korpisalo give you? He sucks, man. Like, let's be straight up. The dude is not an NHL caliber goalie at this point. And he has not shown that in basically the last 5 seasons. Columbus signs him to a contract. They give up on him. They send him to LA. Ottawa signs him to a 5-year contract, gives him up after a year. And the Bruins are willing to trade a Vezina-winning goalie for him. Make it make sense. Please, somebody help me. Why isn't Michael DiPietro the backup right now? Why wasn't he at the end of last season? When you could have traded Korpisalo for, I don't know, scraps at the trade deadline. You still would have had to attach something. Probably not a first-round pick. Probably a third or fourth-round pick for some flyer, some Andre Kasha type flyer. You're not getting anything out of Jonas Korpisalo. Meanwhile, Michael DiPietro is carrying the P Bruins into the postseason last year, the AHL. Carrying them. Arguably the most valuable player in the entire league. Winning the AHL Vezina. And yet we're going to see him in Providence again. Going to see him at the Dunk. Not going to see him at the Garden. You're going to pay $150 to sit in the balcony on a Tuesday night to see Jonas Korpisalo give up 5 against Columbus. That's what you're going to be in for this year. I don't know, man. Somebody's got to help me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is it time for Michael DiPietro? And how important is this goaltending position this year? We'll talk about Jeremy Swayman a little bit more this week and why I believe in a bounce back. But how important is it for the Bruins to have above average goaltending if they have any kind of outside shot of making the playoffs? Goaltender can fix a lot of ills on a team. So that's why I think it's time for Michael DiPietro. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It is completely free. Helps us out a ton, helps me out, helps me keep my job. So like, subscribe, find us on YouTube and wherever you find your podcasts as well. Check out the other videos on the channel. Talking Bruins, everything else going on in the world of Boston sports. I'm your host, Cam Stewart. Zach Burke keeps us on the air 5 days a week.